Good afternoon to all my guests in the UK, and good morning if you're in the USA, and good evening if you're in the Far East or Australia, or wherever you are in the world. I wish you a fantastic day or evening. I've got a wonderful guest today, Mira Rutter. She's a really interesting guest, and you know those times when you feel overwhelmed and burnt out, and you get up in the morning and probably feel a bit lethargic. We all have those days. Today's guest is a work-life balance coach strategist. She's also a presenter and speaker too. And she's going to share some really interesting tips about how we can overcome the overwhelm. So, Mira, thank you for coming on board the show. It's great to have you on board.
Thank you for inviting me, Jim. It's my pleasure to be here. And hello, everyone, wherever you're watching from today.
Definitely. And Mira, you know, what's really interesting is you're a really, really professional person. You really are attention to detail, and you can see that. And I think that for yourself, you know, as professional as you are, I can imagine that would, I mean, it's a challenge in terms of, you know, I think being organized, being really, really attention to detail can take a lot of energy out of people. I think, you know, the planning and all that sort of stuff. And do you find that people come to you who feel a bit burnt out, a bit overwhelmed with their workload, not knowing where to go? Some of the things that people struggle in business really, I think, is, or even just generally in work life, is getting that work-life balance and feeling fresh. Are they the sort of people that sort of come to you for help or advice or work or whatever you can help them best?
Yeah, a little bit. So generally, the people that I work with love what they do. They're very passionate about their work. However, as a result of being so much in their business, sometimes they get so absorbed that they don't leave much time for anything else. Or when they're trying to juggle home life and work, they feel like they're not spending enough quality time with the people that are important to them. And very often they themselves tend to fall to the bottom of their priority list. So things like me time and self-care are usually not even on the radar.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. And I think that in the world that we live in these days, we've got technology, which is meant to make our life easier, but I think sometimes it also makes our life harder too, because it's very easy to have an iPhone, to have any phone, whatever it is, doesn't matter what it is, but you know, you come home from work, you go to the office and the little computers there, they're driven to log on, and you see people working considerable number of hours. I've done it myself, and I do it myself sometimes. You find some weeks where you immerse yourself and it's hard to draw the line, and certainly the balance of life suffers, and you sort of find yourself in a situation where you think, okay, you kind of drift into this sort of abyss, really. You've got to sort of break yourself out of it to go forward. But what can you do to sort of get people to reprioritize? And obviously money is important, finance is important, but not everyone just works just for the money. Also are driven to succeed, and other things motivate people. But how can we sort of take a proper look at ourselves and say, you know what, I've got to change, I'm getting burnt out, the aspects of my life that are really important to me, I'm not really taken care of them. How can one do that? It's a pretty tough thing to do, I think.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you've made really great points, Jim, around the fact that nowadays it's thanks to technology. On one hand, things are being made easier, but then on the other side, we feel that we constantly have to be connected. It's very difficult to get unplugged. And a lot of the people that I work with, in particular, actually, they tend to work from home. So work is just always there. And that makes it even more difficult because, as you said, like the computers, the laptops, the phones are staring at them. And it's like, oh, just one more email or just one more proposal. And this is happening. So on one hand, that can be great because it allows you more flexibility. But then on the other hand, it can really take over the rest of, and mean that you're constantly switched on and you can't really switch off. So for me, the very first step that I go through with my clients is to get them to think about what their priorities in life are. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the noise. And how they actually, so what their priorities are and how they actually want to lead and their life right now.
Yes, yeah, that's really. So it's almost like looking at their values in one sense, where they become clear on their values from a holistic point of view, not just as a matter of context in one area, but look at the big picture. And when you do that, the people have big realizations, Mira, that they've sort of been, yeah. And what's their reaction like when they have that big realization that for the last 5, 10 years they've been really, really focused in one area? And as important as it is, I mean, how can we place a value on time spent with family and children, and you've only got one life, and sometimes you get caught up in things. And what's their sort of reaction, do you think, when they sort of finally get the message? Some people think, you know what, I've just...
I think normally one of the things that I get my clients to do is this wheel of priorities, and when they draw it, that visual representation is usually quite shocking, and they're like, oh my God, I really need to do something about how my life is. And that's the first step for them to start taking action and looking at what they're going to change. And of course, you can't change everything at the same time, and that's where the prioritization part comes in. What are you going to focus on, and what they like? Usually, I advise my clients not to cover more than 3 things because it just gets too overwhelming. So focus on little things and look at how they can integrate things on a daily, weekly basis. So it doesn't always have to be like something huge and massive, but more on the smaller scale. Yeah,
that's a really interesting point you make there. I think it's fascinating because I was teaching a course on the weekend, and I made the point during the course that I see a coach myself every year and sit down, and someone said to me, why do you see a coach? And I've also got a mentor too, because I also work in therapy. I have a mentor who's one of the best in the world, really. And they said, why do you need to do that? And I said, because knowing is one thing, but doing is another. And I said, for me, it's like, yeah, we know the answers, but if people, it's not just a question of knowing the answers. The question is that if the person could solve their own problem, they would have solved it already anyway. So from that point of view, yeah, the information's out there. But it's like a top sports person. You need a coach. You might be the best sports person in the world, but without the coach, you can't unlock your potential. And sometimes you sort of individually, you see what you want to see. You sort of justify to yourself why you're doing this, that, and the other. And I think having someone like yourself, it's great because you got the wheel. There's a visual thing there. You break it down to manageable chunks and say, okay, I'm going to start sort of re-navigating here. I mean, the thing is, for me, I think that the big thing is sort of building that momentum, shifting that sort of paradigm. It can be pretty tough, you know, especially like when you've got so many things going on. I think that's the hardest thing, really. But equally saying that if you burn out, Mira, you're no good to anybody. You're no good to your work. You're no good to your family. And do you get people who come to see you sort of reach that point of burnout, who's just frazzled themselves out, so to speak, and then...
So, well, one of my clients last year, what had happened to her is that she had to take like a month off from her business. And then when she came to me, she was like, I don't want to do this again because, you know, it really sets me back. So there is quite a big, you know, financial, but not just financial, emotional, and there is other baggage that comes with it, with that setback when you are forced to take time off and time out of your business, and not just your business, the rest of your life too, because you have to put it on hold because you're in a situation where you really have to start looking after yourself and you can't look after anyone else. A little bit like on airplanes, where how they say, you know, put your own mask first before you help your children or anyone else. And so this is similar, and that's what I'm trying to get around with my clients, to start prioritizing so that they don't have to go into that burnout state, or if they have, then to avoid that. And also, it's not just about avoiding burnout. For me, it's about making the most out of our life right now.
Exactly,
because you just never know what's around the corner and what may happen. So it's very much about actually leading a life you're happy with and not with regrets. And, you know,
that's a good point you make. And I think for me, it's very easy to be that sort of busy fool, so to speak, where I've certainly been there before where you kind of find yourself doing more and more, but there's no productivity there. It's like, what exactly am I doing type thing. And I think it's really important to have someone to sort of get an idea of what you're doing and maximize your time. And people say to me sometimes, Mira, how do you write so many books? You study, you do research, you travel, and where do you find the time? And for me, it's about having a sounding board and compartmentalizing things and being sort of clear of what to do. And sometimes you end up doing stuff and you consider it, I wouldn't say a waste of time. You think, okay, I could best put my time somewhere else. But I think for me, sometimes that sort of hour of planning that people sometimes are afraid to do because they're worried they should be doing something, then has a big effect in terms of freeing ourselves up. I think taking time to introspect and think, okay, how's my week going? And I sometimes look at my week and think, okay, plan my week and think, okay, will I be happy with that end of the week? And that's sort of things I sort of do as well. Is there anything that sort of that you do for productivity with people, anything specific that you mentioned the wheel for like prioritizing our direction and values. What about for like in terms of the productivity, anything specific that one can...
There are quite a lot of things. So building on what you said in terms of planning and so on, that's a very important part about being productive. And just because you're busy doesn't actually mean that you're being productive. Some people tend to, one of the biggest productivity thing is about thinking, okay, if I work long hours, I'm going to cut into my sleep and that way I can do more work. So actually getting insufficient and inadequate sleep is a big, it's something that really impacts your productivity because then you're feeling sluggish and tired. So there is quite a lot of stuff. So one of that is that part. So a big productivity killer is when people tend to switch between various different tasks without finishing them. And one of the things that I talk about is, and I have a little pretty graph that shows that if you are focused purely on one particular project until completion or until a natural stop, then you don't really waste any time. But if you are, say, writing an email to a client about a proposal, and then you go and check your LinkedIn account, and then you start watching some video on YouTube, and etc., but without finishing any of these, and then you're like, oh my God, my client email, and all these, you don't end up finishing anything, and you waste about 20% of your time between switching between these different tasks, because every time your brain needs to recalibrate and say, oh, what is this? Where am I up to? What does that mean for me? And every time you get back to this thing, that recalibration happens.
That's a great point. No, really great point you make there. I think for me these days, especially, I think the influence on people's concentration span. I do think that these days, I don't know, there's some scientific evidence out there that suggests that there is a correlation there between people now. There's sort of, obviously we've got a lot more distractions if you want them to be there. It's having that discipline and being task specific and knowing what you want to achieve. I think that's really important you mentioned there. But I think another thing I was going to say, you mentioned about the burnout. When I work with people, I always sort of suggest to them not to pick up emails in the evening when the cortisol levels drop or do too much stressful work in the evening. And also I sort of talk to people about sort of adjusting the day accordingly. So when the cortisol levels are high in the morning, they might want to do something that's not too stressful in the afternoon, have a rest. And we're so fixed here on this sort of industrial revolution type way of working, where it's the modern world now. We've got so much technology. We should be using it to enhance our lives and say, no, I can have a rest in the afternoon. I can have a walk. I can do these things that are going to balance my energy again. But like you said before, so many people think they've got to, because they've been told for so long it's all about grinding. And I'm not against hard work. I work hard too. But it's about the balance, I think for sure. And is there anything else that sort of you do with the clients that you work with to increase their energy and promote more of a healthy lifestyle, which these days seems to be problematic for a lot of people? I think the healthy lifestyle.
So aside of multitasking as well, because that also uses up a lot of energy unnecessarily as well by switching. but it's also about looking at how you start your day in the morning. So having a good morning routine that energizes you, that's an important part. Fitting in exercise as well. The food that you eat also impacts how well you feel, how much energy you have. Drinking water, there you go.
Yeah.
So they're all hydration. They're all things that really affect how we feel and whether we feel at our best and whether, as a result, we are as productive as we can be.
Fine. I think for me, I mean, when I get up in the morning, I have like a green juice and smoothie and do a bit of yoga and meditation and a walk. And people say, "Why'd you do that?" And I don't mind the odd cup of coffee here and there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, that way inclined. But the thing is, as I say to people, well, if you have 8 hours sleep and you get up in the morning when your cortisol levels are their highest, then you need to drink 2 cups of coffee to get yourself going. There's something seriously wrong somewhere, if someone needs to sort of reboot themselves. And I think for me, like I said, stuff like water. But I suppose the other side to it too, if someone's sort of been eating the wrong nutritional plan, it sort of takes a bit of time, I would think, to just reintegrate that to, I think that can be a challenge too, to go from sort of being one way. And I suppose everyone's different too. Different things work for different people. That's for sure. So obviously what I do, I'm not saying other people should do. They've got to find their own thing. But I think that's a really, really big part. I really do. Your energy levels are so important about how you take on the day. Even 1 degree of, I saw that 1 degree variation can make a huge, huge difference, I think, in terms of how we feel and water and that sort of stuff. No, it's just really fascinating stuff. And do you seem to find that that things have changed over the years, Mira, in terms of people's stress level? Do you think any more stress now than there were before, or is it just one of the things we've always been that way?
I definitely think that on one hand, with social media, without constantly feeling like I can answer this email or I can answer this message, that it kind of forces you to be more alert and on all the time, and as a result, that adds more stress because, say, if you didn't have that email with some notification popping up to worry you of, oh, I need to act on this, or oh God, this has happened, you'll be none the wiser and you will be enjoying your time off. So those breaks and breaking away, having those breaks outside of social media emails, having a bit more of a digital detox, I think will help to relieve any stress, because that is definitely a source of extra stress and pressure.
Yeah, that's a great point, and definitely there's research around that suggests there's correlations with people who consume a lot of time on social media and their own just mental well-being and health. And certainly if you're out for a meal on a Saturday night and you're sort of picking up an email and you get up in the morning and it doesn't give you any breathing space. And I've had people emailing me on a Monday morning. The emails come through saying you haven't responded to me, and I said, when did you send me the email? And they sent it like Sunday morning at 1, and I said, I'm like, what? Get a life, man. Get a life, for goodness sake. They send you an email. It's like you need. That's the sort of way of the world these days. Is instant gratification. But that's for me underlying a serious problem. I think if you're, that's underlying. If it's not obviously an urgent email, something that can wait. It's not anything from that respect. You sort of weigh it up and think, well, actually, something that's sort of not going to make a huge difference. You sort of see this sort of generation of people coming through now. It really is a concern. I mean, I've addressed it. I'm a committee member now at the Northwest BPS and in the UK, and I actually suggested last night. I said, we've got to really look. People have got to be really proactive and think and address these issues in schools for young people, because you don't want a generation of people growing up thinking that they've got to be like locked in this anxious state on the phone. If you cannot put that damn thing down and just go for a walk and have some fun and be present with your family, goodness me, where do we go from there? And that's the way it's gone. I think people like yourself, it's crucial. We've got people like yourself who've got experience, highly experienced, that's the important thing that can help people be able to make a transition into a fuller life. And I find when you're sort of in a good place mentally, your work follows. It really does. If you're in a good place mentally and you've got the work-life balance, you're on the way. That's for sure. But there's been some fascinating tips. I know you sort of have a download, and I think you mentioned that you're willing to sort of offer I think some sort of coaching tastes. So how can people get in touch with you? Kind of forwards on to yeah.
So I have my free guide, Get Things Done in 9 Simple Steps, which can be downloaded from my website on ruttercoaching.com. It's on the main page, or if you want to go directly to it, it's ruttercoaching.com/balance. And of course, if you have any particular questions or anything that has popped up as we've been discussing today with Jim, then you can contact me either via my website or on LinkedIn. I'm Mira-Rutter. So Mira Rutter. I think I'm the only one, hopefully still around, with a pretty unusual combination of names. So yeah, and the whole point of the guide, what it does is it helps you. It gives you top tips about how to reduce overwhelm, how to free up time, and really to be able to do what's important to you. And it's nicely structured, 9 different sections, and you can pick and choose and do really what suits you best as well. And you don't have to do
for sure. No, so it's very generous of you to offer. I think it's really useful resource, and I think there's so much stuff on the internet. It's hard to know where to look, but obviously, experience, good, and I think that it can be a to get control back of their life somehow, or take a step towards it at least anyway. But thank you very much for being on the show. Really, we will definitely keep in touch. Thanks to everybody for watching, and you've got the details. And thanks again, Mira. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Jim. Bye, everyone. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.